Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney Morgan. If you're new here, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. You subscribe so you know when I come out with new videos. And in the comments, let me know what you think about this case or just say hi. This story that I'm about to tell you, it is on, she's this girl, Karli. She is on a lot of TV shows. She's out and she's about and she's telling her story. And it was so crazy that I decided I have to talk about it. So if you've heard of this case, let me know what you think about it in the comments. Or I know Karli's probably not going to see this video, but like shout out some encouraging words or something, because this woman, she is badass, beautiful, and absolutely inspiring. It's so amazing how she overcame everything that happened to her. She did survive. When I'm done telling you guys about Karli's story, I actually have a story for you myself. This happened back in July. It's March 1st when I'm recording this. But I wasn't going to tell this story because it honestly was just a little traumatizing for me, and I didn't think that it needed to be out there. But I kept hearing people reach out and say, if you see something, say something. So at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you guys about how I found a dead body. And it's not to put the story out there, it's legit for the reason of if you see something, say something. Anyways, on to today's case. So the story that I have for you today is about a woman named Karli. Now growing up, Karli, her mother was actually a Chicago police officer. She was a police officer for 14 years, and unfortunately in 2005, Karli's mom passed away. Karli had a decent social life, and she did have a boyfriend, and this boyfriend, he made it out to her to be that he was like this great guy, and he was just Mr. Wonderful, but she would later find out that he was not, and he was a lying criminal. So in Chicago, Karli moves into her own apartment, and this is a multi-story apartment building, and down below the apartments, they had a huge parking garage where all the residents were assigned their spots to park in. Karli left her apartment at about 9:15, and she went down to the parking garage because she had to go to work. So as she walks into this parking garage, she's walking and she looks over and she sees a car, and she sees three men in that car. And she said these people looked like hoodlums. They looked like they did not belong whatsoever. She said that she looked at these men and they looked back at her, and their focus completely went on Karli. She said she got really weirded out and nervous, so she started running to her car. But these three men got out of the car and they chased after her. And the biggest guy of the bunch caught up to her when she got to her car, and he just punched her in the face. She said that this completely threw her off, her balance and everything. So Karli thought this was a robbery, and she was like, here's my keys, here's my money, take whatever you want, just leave me alone. But these men were not having it, because clearly that's not what they wanted. They didn't want to rob Karli. So all three of these men picked Karli up and they shoved her in her own trunk, and she said she was kicking and screaming and fighting them with everything that she had. She said this whole time in the back of her head, she heard her mother's voice. Her mother, when she was younger, used to tell her, if somebody tries to kidnap you and take you to another location, 9 times out of 10, you are not coming back. So this triggered her fight mode. She was like, shit, if they take me away, I'm probably gonna die. So she fought and fought and fought. And I absolutely love that Karli's mom taught her that, because I think that it's important that when your kids are they're kids, they're so vulnerable, and I'm sorry, but not all kids like think like adults. So in a situation like this, they wouldn't know what to do. So I think that it's great that you put a little bit of reality into your children. Tell them, hey, if this ever happens, this is what you do, you know? Like, if you ask my 10-year-old daughter, what do you do if somebody grabs a hold of you? She's gonna say, I'm gonna scream, drop to the ground, and if I can't get away and run, I'm gonna kick them in the privates. Why? Because mommy told her you fight with everything that you've got. So she, she's may not follow that if the situation comes down to it, but she knows she needs to fight. So Karli's mom telling her this, I really love it. Put reality in your children. And they shut the lid of the trunk. So now Karli is trapped, but she doesn't want to go anywhere. And she remembered that some cars have a release button from the inside of the trunk. So Karli popped that trunk lid. She got out. And as soon as these men that were standing nearby realized she did this, the big one went over, punched her in the face again, put her back in the trunk, and then she felt a splash. A hot, burning splash to her face. This man threw battery acid on her face. Karli said that she immediately could feel her skin start boiling and melting. She said it was so strong of battery acid that her clothes were melting off of her. She said the inside of the trunk you could see was sizzling and melting. Karli said that she began to cry. And she thinks that the only thing that saved her eyes in that situation was the fact that she started to cry. She thinks her tears saved her vision. And Karli's saying that the whole time she's in this trunk, she just keeps hearing her mom's voice saying, you gotta fight, you gotta fight. So she's giving it all that she has, trying to come up with ways that she can get the hell out of there. So while she's in the trunk, she pushes down the center piece of the back seat and she looks through. She sees that there is one man in the driver's seat of her car, and he starts driving out of the parking garage. She said that she's counting all of the turns of the parking garage. She knows that there are 4, but she said she also can hear another car behind them, so she believes that's where the other 2 men are at, or in that car. So Karli starts thinking, what am I going to do to get the hell out of here? She said that she was debating on if she was going to climb through that center console and try to run away, or if she was going to pop the trunk lid again and try to get out and run away again. So she decides that she's going to go ahead and pop that trunk. But this time she doesn't let it fling open. She holds on to it close enough to where it's not latched, but she knows that it's open so that when the vehicle stops, she's ready to get out and run. Once they get to the bottom level of the parking garage, she says that she counted the turns so she knows when she's there. She says she flung that lid open and she jumped out, but she began to roll. She said that she rolled into the other car, but they didn't hit her. She said that when she opened her eyes, the bumper was like right above her head. Then she's like, what do I do now? So she sees her neighbor standing off to the side watching this, and she starts screaming and yelling for this guy to help. And the 3 men in the 2 cars freak out and they speed off. They never did find her car. Police show up and Karli is hysterical. Her everything is burning and melting and she can barely see anything. Police looked around the parking garage. They couldn't find any evidence. The security cameras weren't working that day, so they had no footage. And like I said, her car was never found, so they couldn't find the car and look for fingerprints to identify her attackers. So they went unidentified. After Karli got out of the hospital, she was not going back to that apartment. So she went about 20 miles away. Her father lived in a nice little suburb, so she moved in with him. She gave it about a month. She was terrified to go back. So after a month, she thought, okay, I'm probably safe to go back and grab some of my things. But when she walks into the lobby of her apartment, she sees 1 male and 2 females enter right after she did. And she said that they locked eyes, and she immediately knew that was the tall guy that punched her in the face, shoved her in the trunk, and threw acid in her face just a month before. She said that she internally started freaking out, and the guy and the 2 females, they left. And Karli called the police. She told them, I know who it is. This is the guy. So they brought her down to the police station, and they handed her, which was probably like a 6-pack photo lineup of different men who fit her description that she had given them, and she picked him out. She said, that is the guy who tried to kill me. They did arrest him, but he didn't confess to anything, and no fingerprints or anything were ever found, so they had to let him go. They couldn't convict him. Another month goes by and she decides to go visit her cousin who also lives in the same city that her father lives in. Karli said that it was about 10 p.m. when she was leaving her cousin's house, and when she came out, she saw two females that she recognized. And Karli recognized these two females to be the two females who were with the man who had thrown the acid in her face just a month ago. Karli said that as she was walking to her car, the two females approached her. She said she got nervous as hell, and one of the females asked for directions, and this made no sense to her because apparently it was a small town, and there really was no need to ask for directions if you lived there. So red flags immediately went up. Karli ran as fast as she could to her car. She opened the door, and as she was getting in, the girl stopped her from closing the door. One of the females pulled a gun and told Karli that if she tried to shut the door on her again, she was going to kill her. And then the woman with the gun splashed her in the face with acid again. Karli said she jumped up, she started screaming, and she said that she could see these two females just staring at her. Just staring at her. She thought that they were looking at it as, look what I just did, and they were watching her suffer. So Karli ran back into her cousin's apartment, and she was wearing contacts that day. She says that she thinks that even though the contacts were practically burnt to her eyeballs, that she thinks that the contacts saved her eyesight. So Karli called the police, and she told them everything. She said, these are the girls that were with the guy, and they made all the connections. Police arrived, they took her to the hospital, and after 6 weeks with third-degree burns all over her face, chest, neck, arms, she finally was released. But not before she had 12 surgeries to reconstruct the skin on her body. Karli was able to identify this man again. He was Gabriel Morton. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison for her attempted murder. Then she identified Nicole Baker, and Nicole was sentenced to 15 years for her attempted murder. The theory that the police had was that the boyfriend that Karli had that made himself seem like he was Prince Charming, he had a lot of things on his criminal record, and police theorized that this could have been people that her boyfriend pissed off, and instead of going after him, they went after Karli. And after those 12 surgeries that they had to do to reconstruct her face, Karli is still so beautiful, and she says that she loves her scars. She said that her scars show that she's a fighter and that she's been through some shit. Now, before I close out this video, I'm going to tell you about the story of how I found a dead body. And as I said before, I'm not telling this to be like, I want people to know that when they say, if you see something, say something, it's real. Something that a lot of you may not know about me is I'm a mail carrier. And I carry mail in a small town. And there is a guy who lives 3 doors down from our post office, and I see him every day. I knew his routine. He was the first person on the block to take the trash bins down to the curb like 6 a.m. for Monday pickup. He picked up his mail out of the mailbox every single day. I'm not going to say his name, but I'll call him Skip. Skip was as nice as can be. He was always there to greet me good morning. I can still hear his voice now. Hi, how are you today? So cheery. And I pretty much knew his patterns. I knew that if his car was there, he was going to be on the porch or coming out the door to say hi to me. And if his car was not there, he would still pick up his mail when he got home and take it inside. So it's Monday morning, and I'm out on my route, and I go and I notice that Skip's trash cans are not down by the curve. And I was like, that's kind of weird. So I took his mail, put it in the mailbox. Like I said, that mail's gone by the next day. Like his mail doesn't pile up. So I thought it was kind of weird that the trash bins weren't down. But I went about my day. And this week was the hottest week in July where I live. Tuesday, I go to his house. I see that his mail's not gone. So I go, maybe he's inside hiding from all this heat because it was like literally over 100 degrees. So I didn't think much of it. Put his mail in the box. Wednesday comes around and I go to put the mail in the box and I'm like, it's still there, man. Something's wrong. So I put it in the box and I saw a lot of flies on his front door and I smelt something absolutely rotten. Like when they tell you decomp of a body is very distinctive, and I hate talking about them like this, but it is. And I got a hold of my coworker who lives in this town. I don't live in that town. And I said, hey, have you seen Skip around at all this week? Because I haven't seen him, and his trash bin wasn't down. The mail's not being taken out. And she said, no, I haven't seen him. I said, okay, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to do a welfare check. And I asked her, I said, do you think he'd mind? And she goes, no, he loves you. He'd love if you did a welfare check on him. So I called police and I let them know, and I continued with my route. And as I looped back around, I saw the police there, and I saw them knocking on the door, and I stood there and I watched. And I was like, they've got it. It's fine. So I left, and when I was done, about 5 minutes later, I drove back by, and one of my coworkers said, I think he's dead. And I was like, what do you mean you think he's dead? She goes, an ambulance is there, and I didn't hear any sirens. So I go back, and I pull up, and I said, hey, is Skip okay? I'm the one who called it in. And they said no. He was deceased. He was right inside the front door, right where I was at for 3 days in a row. And they said that they think that something burst in his brain. They said his glasses were off. He looked like he was napping in his chair. He didn't have any family or anything in the area. He had a niece that lived an hour away. And all the officers that were there thanked me because I was the only person that noticed that something was wrong. But I noticed something was wrong on Monday. Okay, so then all the people around town knew Skip. And they started approaching me and telling me how grateful they were that I noticed it. And then I found out that I found him on his birthday. And I felt terrible. But I was like, I was talking about this with my husband. And my daughter overheard, and she said, you know what, Mom? That's the best birthday present you could have given him. And I said, why is that? She said, because he didn't sit in there alone on his birthday. You made people find him. And I felt horrible. But like I said, if you see something, please say something, because I waited and it was so hot, and they had to bring in people with hazmat suits, and I saw that and I felt horrible. So if you see something, say something, because more than likely it's nothing. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Sorry for getting a little emotional, and I will see you later. Bye.